we got to get this done in under 10 minutes, and I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Okay, this is a closing disclosure. You're going to get this if you're buying real estate anywhere in the US. I might give some information specific about California, but if you're buying real estate in anywhere, you're going to get this if you're using a lender. You might get it from your escrow company, but chances are you're only going to see this if you're working with a lender. This comes from the CFPB's website, Consumer and Finance Protection Bureau. It has some dummy information in here, so I'm not disclosing anybody's personal information. The top section is a snapshot of everybody that's involved. It has information about the closing date, the purchase price, the property. It talks about who the parties are involved. That's what this middle section is right here. And then a little bit of information about your loan. This first page is a snapshot. This really, all it is it goes through some real basic information about your loan. The loan amount, your interest rate, and what your monthly principal and interest is. This is the middle section of page 2. It talks about prepayment penalties, and I'm going to do a little ad lib right here. If you're buying a single family residence, primary residence for you to live in, if you have a prepayment penalty on that loan, you need to take a beat and talk to somebody, because I have not seen a prepayment penalty on a primary purchase in freaking forever. So just be on the aware. Like, prepayment penalties are a no-no. Balloon payments, we'll do another video about what a balloon payment is. And then it talks about what the projected payments are for the first 7 years, and then from years 8 through 30. And the reason why there's a split on this is because this particular borrower has to pay mortgage insurance. We'll talk about mortgage insurance in another video. Okay, but it gives them what their projected payments are for the first 7 years, and then the second portion of their loan. And then it talks about what their estimated taxes, insurance, and assessments are. And that includes homeowners assessments. That's what the assessments are that they're talking about. And this is the bottom of page 1, and it's completely useless. It's these numbers down here, closing costs, and then cash to close. Those numbers aren't going to make any sense to you until we look at page 2. So let's go. Right on. So this is the top of page 2 of your closing disclosure. The top section is loan costs, and then the bottom section, sections A through C, are your loan costs. So this is what it's going to cost you to borrow this money. Section A are origination charges. And I'm not going to go through all of the different types of charges that you're going to see on here. We can talk about those things in another video. What I want to show you is how this fucking form works. So what they do is they list out all the charges, and then depending on what column they are, that's what it is. So this column right here, this is borrower, buyer, paid at closing. So you haven't paid this money yet. They're going to collect and pay it at closing when you're closing escrow. Each of these sections, each of these lettered sections, the amount that they're collecting is added up, and it rolls up to the top right there. Okay. What you do here is 1, 2, 3, all 3 of those have roll-ups. They're going to go down to the bottom of that section, and you'll see that here. So these are all the charges that they're going to be collecting at closing right here. Rolls up and includes a paid outside of closing. This was a credit report. So this is something that the borrower paid prior to closing escrow. So that's the total amount of loan costs. The bottom section are other costs, and these are sections E through H. There's recording fees, and I didn't get that section up there, but there's recording fees. There's prepaids, where you're prepaying your insurance, your interest, a bunch of other stuff. And it works the same way as that top section. You add all of those things up, and they roll up into these nice little gray boxes. And then they roll down here. Total other costs, okay? And you'll see right down here where you have all sections. So the top section for the loan costs, the bottom section for the other costs, all adds together here. The left column, buyer is to be paying at closing. The stuff on the right is prepaids. That's your total closing cost for the buyer. This form has other information. This section right here is for the seller. This is for other people. I'm not so focused on the seller side, because how these boxes work is the same for a seller, but sellers are typically not going to be seeing this information. So that's how you get to your total closing costs. And if you remember back on page 1, that number is at the bottom of page 1. Moving right along, page 3. So the next 2 pages, or 3 pages, 3, 4, and 5, these are all like loan terms and weird stuff that you wouldn't expect to see in this document. This top section of page 3 is calculating cash to close. So when you originally applied for your loan, your lender gave you a loan estimate. That's this column right here. This column over here is what it actually was. There's something that if they did not estimate correctly, and again, this is like internal, I have no idea how they calculate this information. Potentially the lender has to give you a credit because they did not estimate correctly. But this is where it would talk about that type of information, whether or not there was changes, why it changed, and if you're entitled to a credit. It would show here. Down here is a summary, again, of the transaction. And this is going to look more familiar if you've bought property in the early 2000s or really anything prior to like 2011, where it goes through and your top section talks about due from. So on the buyer side, this is what's due from you. On the right side, this is what's due to the seller. So due from you, purchase price, right here, closing costs that you owe. So that was like that $9,000 or something. And then your HOA. These guys owe HOAs for, their portion of ownership. So that's the total amount due from them, is that number up here. Down here, paid for or on behalf of the borrower. So your deposit, your earnest money deposit will be shown here. Your loan amount will be shown here. And this is where they do math. They're going to take amount due from you and amount paid from you. And this is what's going to get you that final number of what you need to wire to escrow. You'll see that final number right here. It also does, at the bottom section, it talks about any adjustments, prorations, credits, and stuff like that. That's all included in here. But you'll see right here, those are the roll-ups of what's due from you, what's been paid on your behalf. So the due from you is that positive number. What's been paid on your behalf is that minus number. Gets you the number that you have to wire into escrow. And I know this is really small, but just deal with it. That's how much the buyer would need to wire into escrow. On this side, again, this is not really relevant for a buyer. They don't really care, and they usually don't see this stuff. This would show a seller how much they're getting back. Here we go. Additional information about this loan. There are a bunch of disclosures on this page. When I say a bunch, I mean there's like almost, I think 10. We'll maybe count it. Whether or not your loan is assumable, whether or not there is a demand feature, late payment. When is my loan late and how much do I owe? If there is a negative amortization, and y'all, I will go back and do videos. We're doing that. We're doing a library on terms in real estate. We're going to talk about all of these things. Because this is a top side, we'll also talk about the escrow account. This gives you a snapshot of what your escrow account will look like in the first year only, because I'm going to give you a little tip. Your mortgage insurance and your property taxes are always going to go up. Always. Okay, never say never. But if your property taxes are going down, lucky for you. If your homeowner's insurance is going down, it's because you're shopping it, or maybe you don't have as good a coverage. It does not matter. This is only talking about the first year. If you make those payments, this is what your account's going to look like, what it's going to start with, and what it's going to end with at the end of year one. Okay, here we are at the bottom of page 4. This is the negative amortization. This talks about whether or not your lender accepts partial payments. So if you are making 2 payments a month and it's not the full amount, what are they going to do with it? The security interest, go check out the video. I did a video on security interest, what that is. It identifies the property that this loan is secured against. Okay, and then this is the bottom section about that escrow, what your escrow is going to look like. And then in the future, this is like the coverall. This is the cover they're asked for the lender. It says, listen, we can't predict the future. If we did, we would be in a different business. But we can't guarantee that we're ever going to be able to give you a loan again because of a whole host of things. Value of the property, the market. You don't have a job anymore. Your credit worthiness. We're never going to guarantee that we're going to give you another loan just because we gave you one now. That's what this is. Okay. This is they hid this. This used to be on its own page all by itself. This is the loan calculations. This is the total amount of payments that you're making. This is how much your loan's actually going to cost you over the life of the loan, assuming you make minimum payments the entire time. That's what this is. How much your loan is actually going to cost you. Other disclosures, you received a copy of your appraisal. They haven't made you any other promises. Everything that you're signing today is what you have agreed to. Liability after foreclosure. This is state specific. Whether or not your state protects consumers from foreclosure, certain types of California, if you're in California, this box is going to be checked. There is state law to protect you from liability for unpaid balances. There are some states, Virginia is not one of them. This box would not be checked for Virginia. Okay, and here we are at the bottom of page 5. Again, refinance, tax deductions. Talk to your CPA about whether you can deduct any or all of the fees that you paid today. And then here's contact information for everybody that's involved. Your lender, your mortgage broker if there was one, real estate agents, and then your settlement agent. Everybody that's involved. And that is your closing disclosure in under 10 minutes. If you have questions, drop them in the comments. Don't worry, we'll do more videos about specific terms that we talked about in this document.